Okay, so we can go ahead and get started. To start off here, I'm going to be choosing new map of my territory data. We have a few different options for creating the territories. I'm going to be going through, I believe, at least 2 of these. But before we start, I'm going to go ahead and post a poll. It's going to ask what your data sources are. So your data sources for territories could be something like a map point file or an Excel sheet. You may also be making the territories from scratch. If you're making them from scratch, just choose I don't have a data source. Okay, so everyone's using an Excel sheet or they're making them from scratch, in which case we're going to stick to the top 2 options here. If you're building your territories from scratch, you're going to choose interactively from areas in a map. If you're building them from a territory table, you're going to choose, or from an Excel sheet rather, you're going to choose from my territory table. I have an Excel sheet. I'll be choosing from my territory table. Ultimately, these will get us to the same territory manager. This is just a way of importing what we already have. So I'm going to go to my training folder, choose my territories. And just so you can see this sheet before I actually plot it, I'm going to open it up. You can see it has the zip code, the name of the territory that zip code should go into, and then we just have a number of widgets here that is just used for tracking. So this could be anything. You could have this in a separate sheet if you wanted to. I'll go over this a bit more later. So the important columns are these. So if you do have a territory table, you want to have some type of geography, whether that's zip codes, counties, census tracts, states, whatever it is, in one column, and then the respective territory that bit of geography goes into. So in my example, zip code 59001 will go into territory 2, as will all these other zip codes with 2s. Zip code 59602 will go into territory 1, etc. So with that sheet chosen, I'll hit next. This step looks a little bit more intimidating than it actually is. We really just want to pick the geography that our territories are built out of up here at the top. So as you saw, mine were built out of zip codes. Yours could be counties, they could be census tracts. You would probably know better than I would which one it is. So just choose the geography that your territories are made up of. The geography field will likely never change. It is just, so you'll see if I pick tract here, it's going to default to tract. If you pick zip code, it's going to default to zip code. You usually don't need to touch this. And then down here, my territory table settings. So the territory field is the field in my Excel sheet that contains my territory names. For me, that was called territory. And the geography field is the field that matches the geography field above. So that's it. And we choose fields to track. So you can click on the plus here. If you want to track demographics that are in Maptitude, you can choose add geographic layer fields. If you want to track fields that are in the same sheet as your territories, like mine were, you could choose import territory table fields, choose which you want to track and hit OK. If you want to track data in a separate sheet, choose import fields from a file. Okay, so I have 3 territories, territories 1, 2, and 3. The territory manager appears in the top left of my screen. Yours may appear out here, somewhere on the map. There we go. You can dock it to wherever you want by just dragging it up to wherever you want to dock it. So I like docking mine either above or below the display manager to save space. You'll see territories get added as a layer to your display manager. If you uncheck it, it hides them all. If you check it, it shows them all. If you want to customize the style for individual territories, that is done in the territory manager. You can click on the respective or double click on the respective color next to the territory. You change the name and the color. You can also right click on the territory and choose edit settings to do the same thing. You can see the fields that I'm tracking up here on the top right. So I'm tracking the number of widgets, and those are listed here on the right side. You can customize additional settings in the top right gear drop down here. So you can choose territory layer settings. And you can go to the fields tab to add additional tracking fields if you'd like. The general tab just has the name of the territories. And then you can go to the map tab to change either the color of the territories, or if you want to adjust the type of style you have here. So you can change to border coloring if you want, and it'll just color the borders instead. I prefer fill coloring, but whatever you want to do, it's fine. Okay. As far as assigning additional areas to your territories. From this territory dropdown, this is controlling the territory that we're currently adding areas to. So if, for example, I want to add zip codes to territory 2, I would select territory 2 from this dropdown. The select dropdown allows us to choose what types of areas we're allowed to select. So that could be empty areas, those are unassigned areas, any area and prevent the territories from overlapping, or you could do any area and allow the territories to overlap. Or if you specifically want to choose areas to remove from territories, you choose areas to remove. I'll start off with empty areas here, and then geography allows us to pick what geography we are currently selecting from. So for me, that's zip codes, but you can certainly go up here to 3-digit zips, states, counties, whatever it is. To select the areas, choose select by pointing, and start clicking on zip codes. We see that as I click on more zip codes, they're getting highlighted in red. You can also click and drag to select more than one zip code at once. And you can also choose between other selection options here in the same dropdown. So if I zoom in, let's say I wanted to instead draw a shape around a bunch of zip codes. Click on this dropdown and choose select by shape. Click once to start drawing, click again to add a corner. Double click to close the shape. It'll select all the zip codes in there. Get that last zip code. There we go. Once you've got all the zip codes selected that you want, click on the green check mark to save the changes. If you want to cancel the changes before you've made them, you can click on the red X and it will remove your red changes. If you want to move zip codes from one territory to another, you're going to choose any area and prevent overlapping territories from the second dropdown. Click the zip codes you want to move over and hit the check mark. While you're moving areas between territories and assigning areas, if you go to the Changes tab, you'll see how much of each tracking field you're moving from one territory to another. So in my example, I'm moving over about 250,000 widgets with this change. So once I hit the check mark, both of those should shift by 250K. And they do. And again, if you want to remove areas, pick the territory you want to remove areas from, choose remove areas. And when we hit the green check mark, those areas will be removed. So here, if I want to add those back to territory 3, choose territory 3 from this dropdown, select the empty areas, highlight those areas, check mark. There are additional options here for zooming to different territories and creating a territory layout. You can also choose the working territory by clicking on it with this button. You can adjust territory settings by clicking on that button. And if you want to zoom to a particular territory, you can click Zoom to Territory to do that. And the next Zoom button will show you all the territories. As far as exports go, you can right-click on a given territory and choose Export Territory to Excel to get information about one territory. This may take a minute. It'll show you the number of widgets in that territory, the zip codes that territory is composed of, a census overlay of that territory, as well as all the world cities and cities and towns in this area. You can also highlight multiple territories, right-click and choose either Export Territories to Excel to get basically what we just saw, but with 3 territories instead of 1, or Export Territory List to Excel. Export Territory List will just give you the geography list. So you'll have just the zip code and the respective territory it goes into. But this is for all 3 territories instead of just the 1. Finally, if you want to remove your territories, you can right-click on the territories layer and choose Remove. If I had chosen the option to create territories interactively when I first opened the territory wizard, all the controls work the same way. You just start with 0 territories instead of 3 territories. And if you want to create a new territory, choose New Territory. Again, click Select by pointing. Choose the zip codes you want to include in that territory. And just click the green check mark.